Hey everybody, what we're going to look at today is basically more of an educational piece. A lot of questions circulating around as far as on triathlon training. How much should I be doing? What should I be doing? What kind of workouts should I be going throughout the week? How do I put everything together? So today we're basically going to look at more of an educational piece. Now the biggest thing that I can say to people is there's not one training program that's really going to work for everyone. Everybody is different. Everybody recovers differently. Everybody can push their bodies to a certain point. You may be maybe a non-competitive triathlete or a recreational triathlete or a performance triathlete. So there's a lot of different combinations in there. We're going to look at basically a training pyramid as far as where do I start? Kind of an overlook of maybe a 12-week program, which is usually a fair amount of time to really get started and to have that ability to put a decent amount of training in to get yourself going. So we're going to look at kind of piece by piece, putting things together, what you should be doing, how it should look like. But like I said, over the years, it takes experience. I might not train the same as other people. Kind of trial and error. You have to see what you can take and what works best for you. So let's take a look, and hopefully this answers some questions for some people. And if anybody has any questions, you can post them on our Facebook page, or you can email at Aroostook County Tri Club at gmail.com. So, like I said, hope this answers some questions for everybody. Okay, so we're going to dig into basically what is the how, what, and when of triathlon training. So go ahead and grab a pen or a pencil, a notebook, something to write stuff down with. You can take notes, or if you want to get a copy of the PowerPoint, feel free to email us at Aroostook County Tri Club at gmail.com. So why do we learn to train? Basically, it creates the best possible outcome for success. You are proficient, you're organized in your training, and that's going to give you the best results. It also helps prevent injury. If you're increasing too much or putting too much intensity, you can keep an injury log. You can basically see what you're doing in your training program that could be possibly causing injury. It also offers a step-by-step approach that prepares the body and mind for events. So what we're going to take a look at in some of these plans is kind of a step-by-step every couple of weeks where we're working on increasing the volume, increasing the intensity. So it's very systematic. Systematic approach is going to offer much more success. And it also keeps you objective. So instead of just waking up every morning just saying, I'm going to go out for a 20-mile ride today, or just kind of do what I feel, it keeps you a little bit more objective. You have a plan. You're proactive, and that's a very, very important key. So the two biggest terms that we're going to use is basically volume and intensity. Volume is the amount of training, distance, or time per week or month. And the intensity is basically how hard or easy your effort is. So the first question you got to ask yourself when you're looking at proceeding with training for a triathlon is, am I a competitive triathlete or am I a recreational triathlete? A competitive triathlete, their focus is going to be a little bit more at performing at the highest level that you can, trying to do the best, most proficient workouts that cuts the most amount of time off your triathlon. You're trying to get as fast, as fit as possible. So your measurement is going to be the least time as possible. That's the biggest component that everybody talks about, is trying to get the least amount of time in the swim, the bike, or the run. And your training is going to be comprised of your aerobic base, your lactate threshold, VO2, some strengthening, some drills, and we're going to talk about all that stuff. The other component is people who are being a recreational triathlete. Maybe their focus is just completing the distances. You're not looking for a specific time. You're just going out more relaxed. You just want to complete the distance. Obviously, your training and your work is going to be a lot less intense. The measurement is just basically confidence. How good or confident did you feel on the swim, in the bike? How focused were you, and how did you feel? Did you feel like you had a good race, a good event, or do you felt like, I didn't really feel that great, I could have worked on something more? And then your training, like I said, less intense. It's going to be more aerobic. Just getting the miles, just making sure that you can complete the distance, and then maybe some strength just to work on preventing injury, working on that overall fitness level. So where exactly do we begin? We're going to kind of look at a 12-week kind of program is usually optimal. And the question that you got to ask is, how fit are you now? Are you just coming off the couch? Have you been doing some things over the winter like skiing or indoor rowing or cycling or whatnot? When you're coming into the preseason, how fit are you? You're able to do a lot more and able to really get into the workouts if you're coming off an off season and you're already in fairly decent shape. And those variables can be, like I said, the off season, it can be time, or the access of equipment. What do you have at your house? What do you have at a fitness center to work with? What we're looking at here is basically called a fitness pyramid. And this shows stack by stack the layers of how much volume you should be taking in each level. Now at the bottom is the aerobic base. The aerobic base is just like a foundation of a house. If the foundation is not strong, then you start the harder workouts, you're going to crash. You're going to get injured. So you have to have that aerobic base. That's usually getting in a few weeks of easy miles, and then start doing your lactate threshold, your VO2 max, and then the speed and high velocity, we're not going to really worry about that too much. So we're going to talk about all these individually. So the heart rate. First thing we're going to look at is a little bit of heart rate. A lot of different theories out there as far as heart rate. Most of the things that we're going to look at, the workouts, a lot of it's going to be based on heart rate. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find out what is your max heart rate. And that's usually found by 220 minus your age. So how we find our target heart rate is something called the Carvonen method. Now the best thing about this method, or this formula, is that it takes into account your resting heart rate. If you just base your workouts on the 220 minus your age, and then you get a percentage of that and you're using that, that's okay, but it's not as accurate because it doesn't take into account resting heart rate. So the Carvonen method, what exactly does that look like? This is a formula that I use. Basically what you do is you're taking your heart rate max minus your heart rate rest multiplied by the percent intensity plus your heart rate rest again. So that looks something like this. You find your max heart rate. That's step number one. And that could be, let's say if you're 30 years old, that's 190. If your heart rate at rest may be 50, you're going to want to plug that into as well. So those are the two numbers that you need to come up with first. Secondly, here's the method. This is how we kind of plug everything in. So max heart rate minus your resting heart rate. And then you're going to multiply that times your effort. So 75%, that's usually right around lactate threshold, maybe a little bit below. And then you're going to add your rest, and that's going to come to 155 beats per minute. So that would be 75% effort is your 155. So the first thing we're going to look at is the aerobic base. What does that look like? Well, first of all, aerobic means with oxygen. So you're not working hard enough that your body cannot be supplied adequately with oxygen. The aerobic base is basically your foundation of fitness. This is where you start. All fitness is based on the aerobic base. Now, the aerobic base is done basically, if we're looking at a 12-week training program, this can be done week 1 through 12. So you're doing this the whole training program. This usually makes up about 70 to 75% of your volume, and the intensity is right around 50 to 70% max heart rate. This is not hard. This is just going out and getting easy miles. It also utilizes fat as fuel. The body has several different energy systems in it. Fat burning, glycogen storage. We're not going to get into a whole lot of physiology, but just like you go to the gas station and there's regular, mid-grade, and supreme fuel, your body kind of works a bit as the same way. An aerobic base is sustained effort but low intensity. The second stage is a lactate threshold. Now, when you start having a decent base, you can start doing lactate threshold right around 4 weeks. Now, if you're just starting out, if you really haven't done anything over the winter, you may want to wait a little bit. Maybe not start lactate threshold until maybe 6 weeks or so. But the better in shape you come into the season, in your preseason, the sooner you can start that. So if you're in decent shape, you can start right around week 4 or so. So lactate threshold, or otherwise known as anaerobic threshold, anaerobic means basically without oxygen. You're performing at an effort in which your muscles are demanding more oxygen than can be supplied. And that translates to this. Training at lactate threshold raises your body's ability to buffer lactic acid, giving you the ability to sustain a faster pace over distance. Basically what this means is that when you reach a certain effort, usually around 75-80% max heart rate or above, your body starts accumulating waste products, just like the exhaust coming out of a car. Those waste products are lactic acid. When you start performing at a certain level, that the lactic acid begins to accumulate in the bloodstream, especially in the muscles. And when your body can't rid that as fast as it's building up, lactic acid builds up, your muscles can't contract, your legs slow down. That's the burning that you feel. So lactate threshold utilizes a bit more glycogen in the muscle storage. So that's basically like a very high performance sugar that's basically stored in the muscles. You're always burning fat and glycogen. It's just a combination of which more do you burn. When you're more in an aerobic base, you're going to be burning more in your fat stores. When you come up in your effort, you're going to be burning more glycogen. So it's not like an off switch where your body hits the off switch on your fat stores and goes to glycogen. You're always burning both. It's just a matter of which do you burn more according to your effort. So this usually occurs between 75 and 80% max heart rate. And this composes basically about 10 to 20% of your weekly volume. You're not doing a lot of this. This is only maybe one workout per week. Maybe one on the bike and one on the run, and maybe something in the swim. So this is 90 to 95% race effort. So this is a little bit easier than race effort, but the volume is a little bit more. So if you race a 5K and you go out and do lactate threshold, you may do a total volume in your workout that is more than what you race. So you may do like 3.5 miles of work, but yet the effort is less than race effort. And if you're doing any type of intervals, your rest ratio is usually a 4-to-1 or 3-to-1. Basically what that means is your work is 4, your rest is 1. So if you're going on for 4 minutes, you would rest for 1 minute, or on for 3 minutes and rest for 1 minute. So your rest is short. So a couple examples, 12 1,200-meter intervals. Say you went out and you did a 5K race under 6-minute mile pace. So say your average was 5:50 for the race. Your lactate threshold would be right around 6-minute mile pace. Okay, so that's just a little bit slower than your race pace. 4-to-1 for your work to rest ratio, and that would work out to about a 107 rest. We're going to go a little bit more over this in a couple of slides in a little bit more detail. So just a couple examples there. So the lactate threshold basically looks like this. Here's the level at which lactic acid starts to accumulate in your blood. What we want to do is we want to work right in through here, just above lactate threshold, anywhere between 1 to 5 or even 6 minutes. During that rest, we drop back down in through here. So what we're doing is we're kind of toggling back and forth between that, and that basically helps build the body's and the muscles' resistance and tolerance to lactic acid. So the next thing we're going to talk about is VO2. VO2 is basically a volume of oxygen that your blood can absorb from the lungs. This uses a high energy stores such as glycogen, so a lot of glycogen usage here. This is intense. This is a little bit more intense workout. So usually you don't want to start this until maybe 8 weeks, and this can be done from maybe week 8 to 12. But I would really recommend that you come into the season in shape with this. Again, if you're just starting out, you probably want to do mostly lactate threshold. This utilizes basically above 85 to 90% max heart rate. So anything above 85% is going to increase your VO2. This is a faster and harder than race effort. The rest ratio is usually 1-to-1. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, about why it's so important to have an actually shorter rest because of your harder work. This is going to comprise about 10 to 15% of your volume, but not on top of your lactate threshold. So this can replace your lactate threshold later on. But that doesn't mean that you need to stop lactate threshold. You can kind of go back and forth. You can do a combination, but you definitely don't want to do both of these workouts in 1 week. Again, shorter duration, very high intensity. So a couple examples. You may go to the track and you may run 4 and 8, 10, 12, faster than race pace. That heart rate is up with the 1-to-1 rest. A couple examples for the bike, same principle. In the swim, maybe 100-yard repeats, 1-to-1 rest. So if you're going hard for 2 minutes, you're going to rest for 2 minutes. And here's the reason why we do that. Here's the reason why we want short rests. In between these two lines right here is your VO2 zone. So imagine your VO2 like thousands of tiny little sponges. The more porous and the larger the sponge, the more you're going to soak up, right? So when we look at VO2 and we're doing intervals, here's your VO2. Your VO2 max may be, say, right about here. When you start an interval, your VO2 increases up to a certain point. When you stop your interval, your VO2 then decreases. If you take too long of a rest, your VO2 drops all the way down here. The whole point of a VO2 workout is to stay right in this zone, right in your VO2 zone. That will give you the most proficient workout. If you take too much rest and you're dropping way down here, that's all the more time it's going to take you to come up. Now you're in your VO2 zone. Now you come up into your peak. Okay? And then you're going to take your rest again. So that's why we do short rests. We need to stay in this zone as much as possible. We're trying to get a better transportation of oxygen from the lungs into the bloodstream. That's the whole point of VO2 workouts. The last component is a speed or high velocity. Now, I don't really recommend this for pretty much anybody unless you're a very, very high performance athlete. This isn't the type of training that I do. This is more, sprinters in running or cycling. Very, very, very high intensity workouts. So I really wouldn't recommend this to anybody, but I just wanted to give you all kind of some exposure as far as what this is about. It just basically creates a neuromuscular adaptation to muscles, and it can apply to VO2. So this is basically super and high intense work with a lot of rest. So you are going maximum, all out, as hard as you can, and then taking a lot of rest. So this usually has like a 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 work to rest. So maybe you're going super high for 30 seconds and you rest for a minute. So very high intense, but like I said, overall, I wouldn't really recommend this to people. Can be done by triathletes, again, more performance athletes, milers, cyclists looking for sprinting power, things like that. So how exactly do we get there from here? So we'll kind of finish with a couple of slides about how do I basically figure out what I'm doing for times. Exactly what should I be doing as far as for times when I get in the water and I want to work on lactate threshold. What does that look like? The first thing we're going to do is just take a look at the distance in time. Is usually what we're looking at in the swim. So go out and do a 500-yard time trial in the pool. Now you can base your workouts off of that 500-yard time trial. So if you're doing lactate threshold, let's say that you do the 500-yard swim in 10 minutes. Now you figure out your pace. That's about 1 minute per lap, which is 50 yards. Okay, so 1 minute per 50 yards. That's just down and back. That equals your race velocity. So now you have a race velocity. Now you have something to work with. So for a lactate threshold work, you may do 4 200-yard repeats at 2:10. Your race would be 2 minutes. Lactate threshold, you're looking at 2:10. So is that slower than race? Yes. That's what we're looking for. And then you're taking a short rest. Look at the rest. Look at the rest time in comparison to the work time. What does that look like? That looks like a 4. It looks like a 4 to 1. Okay, so that's what that's the type of workouts that you're gonna want to look at. Cycling, a little bit different. Cycling is usually determined by either power or heart rate. So not a lot of people have a power meter on their bike. So it may be more convenient to go with heart rate. Now you can do this on the trainer, you can do it on the road. Lactate threshold, again, this is just an example. I'm not saying that this is what you have to do. I'm just throwing this out as an example. So you may do 3 to 6 minute repeats, and you want to try to handle the max resistance between 90 and 100 RPMs. So this really gets the blood lactate up, really focuses on good resistance, good cadence on the bike. So you may be in the big chain ring on the 19, and the 19, that's how many teeth are in the rear, in your cog, in the back, the rear cassette. So that's basically a very middle gear. If you can handle that, and your heart rate stays up, then that's great. That's what you want to look for. The heart rate zone exactly wants to be usually, like I said, between 75 and 85%. Run is a little bit more similar to the swim. You're going to base it more on distance and time. So you can go out and you can do a 5K race, or maybe get on the track and do a 3,000 meter time trial. You're going to base those workouts off the race or the time trial. So let's say that you run a 5K race in about 20 minutes. That's an average of 627 per mile. There's your race velocity, 627 per mile. So again, lactate threshold, 95%. If you calculate that, that's going to look about a 643 per mile. So you can do some 1200s, you can do 3-mile tempo, or even slightly slower than that, but that's about 95% of your race pace. Okay, so there's a couple examples. One thing that I like to go to is a site called Macmillan Running Calendar. This is a great site where you can plug in your race time and get your workouts. So we'll do this real quick. Say that you run a 5K race and your time is 20 minutes. And then your goal is 5K race. Maybe you want to break 20 and you want to go 19:30. Calculate the paces. The first step gives you a breakdown of what your current times were, what your splits were. This is what you did in the race, and this is what your goal is. Now if you scroll up, you'll see training paces. This gives you recommended times for pretty much all your workouts. The speed paces, this looks at increasing your VO2. Sprint paces, I wouldn't worry about that. Your stamina paces are basically your lactate threshold. Those are your cruise intervals. So that gives you, if you want to do some 800s, here's your target time, some thousands, some 1200s. This is a very, very good tool to use. So the last thing we're going to go on about is just a quick little spiel about volume and intensity. This is just an example of a periodization within the 12 weeks. So if you're you want to break things down to every 4 weeks. You want to increase that volume or intensity each week. So week A, you're starting here. You're moving up each week, and then the 4th week is a rest week. Okay, great time to don't do any VO2, don't do any lactate threshold, just pure aerobic base. That's all you need to worry about. So get a good rest period there. So what does this look like? This is basically an example of just a training program that I'm basically using right now. I'm not saying that anybody needs to use this. This is what you need to go by. This is just a sample of how I try to juggle things. So Sunday, I may have a long aerobic base. I may do a run or a cycle. If you're in pretty good shape coming into the season and you have a good aerobic base, I may only suggest only doing one long aerobic base workout, one run or run cycle each week. But if you really need to work on your aerobic base, especially if you're more of a recreational triathlete, you might want to do a run and cycle in that week period. Long distance is not going to make you a faster triathlete. It's all about quality and not quantity. So Monday, I may do a strength workout in the morning, cycle in the afternoon. Tuesday, great chance to do a lactate threshold or VO2 workout. You can do hills, you can do track workout, tempo. There's just endless things that you can do. Wednesday, swim in the morning, cycle in the afternoon. Thursday, you've had 48 hours to recover since your workout on Tuesday. So now on Thursday, I may do a lactate threshold or VO2 workout. It may be steady state, maybe 20 minutes, or intervals. 2 minutes with a 30-second rest, or 3 minutes, a minute rest, something like that. Friday, strength in the morning, upper body maybe perhaps instead of lower body. The run in the afternoon. You can do a quality run, hills, fartlek workout. And then Saturday, great chance, great opportunity to do a bike and swim workout. A brick workout is basically what we call that. any combo workout between a run and bike or swim and bike is called a brick workout. So again, that can be intervals in the pool. It can be get in there and swim a 500, get onto the bike. You can do steady state, etc. Or this is optional, or you can do a run and bike brick workout. So there's a quick look as far as kind of a sample as far as what I do with the routine. Now, like I said, that's not the be-all, end-all of everything. That's just a sample. So let's kind of wrap things up. Couple things to keep in mind. Long distance will not make you faster. You want quality over quantity. Don't try new things on race day. One thing I've learned is that something may sound good in theory, but then when you try it, when your heart rate is up, when you're a little lethargic coming out of the pool, everybody's kind of a little confused when they get out of the pool because the blood going from the head back down to the body. You may be stumbling around a little bit. You do not want to try new things on race day. Nutrition, absolutely number one. You want to make sure you have balanced meals, snack often, take something in every couple of hours. That keeps your energy up, keeps your glycemic index up, keeps your metabolism up. So if you're having big meals, your metabolism shoots up and then back down. If you incorporate snacks in there, healthy snacks, it helps keep that metabolism up. You want adequate water intake. And the last thing I can say is alkaline diet. If your body's pH is low, meaning below 7.0, your body will fatigue faster and you will be more susceptible to injury if your body has a low pH. So you want something above 7.0, something within 7.2, 7.8. You want an alkaline diet. Feel free to research that or post any questions about that on our Facebook page. You want to train smart, keep a log or journal. Make sure you know what you're doing so you have a record. Plan your training week. Number one thing I can say is Saturday night, Sunday morning, sit down and plan your week. The last thing you want to do is get home from work or you got a busy day or whatnot and you just don't know what to do. Sit down on a calendar and plan your weeks out. That's something that I can't stress enough. Very, very important if you want to learn to be a better triathlete. Increase your volume only by 10% a week. So if you're doing, say, 20 miles on the run, maybe only boost it up, maybe quarter to a half a mile per week, maybe a little bit more because you have low miles, but really you don't want to increase the volume that much more than 10% per week. So that's pretty much everything. Anybody has any questions, again, feel free to post stuff on our Facebook page. I hope that answers a lot of questions. Weather's getting better, so really great opportunity to get out there, get some good workouts in. Really appreciate anybody if you tuned in, and hope this helps out with everything. Again, train smart, train hard, be healthy, and the biggest thing is have fun. I wish everybody the best.